My name is Lyle Murphy, the founder of the Alternative to Med Center. And today our video is going to be about Effexor Mania and whether this is a real concern or if it's fake news. Some questions that came in, starting with the first question. Is Effexor an SSRI? It is not an SSRI. It is actually what is called an SNRI, which means a selective norepinephrine and serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Next question. Can all antidepressants trigger mania? Interestingly enough, excuse me, they all can. Antidepressants are notorious for having a paradoxical reaction, whereas, normally a medication like Prozac or something might be to help soothe the person and to help a person lessen their anxiety, could actually trigger them into being manic. It's not the normative effect of that med. It's not the typical presentation of what a medication like Prozac would do, but it does happen. So the SSRI class, which means they're strictly the serotonin class, they're reuptaking serotonin. Typically, those are not known for their primary effect or their even common effect being to trigger mania. They can, as I mentioned, but it's not as common as it is with a drug like Effexor or Cymbalta or any of the more stimulating drugs, including Wellbutrin. So it really is more the reuptake of the norepinephrine in the case of Effexor, or the reuptake of dopamine in the case of Wellbutrin, that is fueling the potential to go manic. So if I were a doctor, a psychiatrist, and I were evaluating who should be taking a drug like Effexor, I certainly would not give it to someone who had a bipolar presentation. Someone that has had manic episodes, this drug could definitely increase the preponderance of that happening. Next question. What does mania feel like, and how do I know if I'm being manic? Can you give any examples of mania from your work or your life experience? Okay, the first part of this is, what does mania feel like? So mania looks like it's sort of an amplification of things that already might be near and dear to us. Let's say I'm very passionate about a religious ideology, or about how corporate capitalism is poisoning the world, or about some sort of community effort in the neighborhood. Those are all good things, and a manic episode might look like one of those things that we're most passionate about becoming such a thing that we're sort of overpowering other people to a degree that we can't necessarily control with our viewpoints or with our fervor about this particular thing. And in my history, I had quite a few manic episodes, so I'm doing some of this from actually personal experience as well. How do I know if I'm being manic? Typically, the person who's experiencing mania won't necessarily know it unless they've really, really done some looking through the inner looking glass at themselves when they're in these manic moments. But it's getting stuck on a certain subject and not being able to come back off of it, trying to grab people by their shirts and insist that they understand you. If you're doing that, and it's not just one isolated event where maybe you needed to get your point across in a certain way, and it's sort of happening all over the place, you might be manic. Other examples might be wanting to walk to the next town over, or not sleeping, or doing things that you may not normally do and not implementing the safety things that would be needed, like getting in your car and just driving off to nowhere without thinking about how much gas is in the car or where you're going, or having any sort of forgetting your wallet and not even knowing it until you get 100 miles down the road. I mean, we all do these things, but I mean, a combination of all those things, adventuring out into things without much skill and not really considering the consequences. And if that's not your normal behavior, then yeah, you might be suffering from some sort of mania. Give examples of mania from my work and life experience. I'm looking into some of the further questions here to make sure I'm not going to answer the same thing twice. So some examples of mania might be like I had someone working for me at one time that was basically, you know, doing accountant, keeping books and things, and was very good at it. Honestly, fantastic at it. And there were times when this person would just be unable to be reined in, singing a lot and staying up and not sleeping, and you know, claiming Jesus was coming and things like that. And one of the things that sort of was hallmark in this particular case was that it seemed to have a correlation with the menstrual cycle. And when estradiol, which is a stimulatory, primarily female hormone, gets expressed, it can be very stimulating. And so this was a little bit cyclic around the menstrual cycles. And the tendency, and I think the tendency is, you know, more ubiquitous, was for this woman to be to kind of double down on working really hard, drinking more tea, and trying to muscle through the you know, the menstrual cycle, and to muscle through using that mania as sort of fuel to get more work done, and then drinking more caffeine. It was probably the antithesis of the right mechanism. So this actually leads into the next question, which is how do I calm a manic episode? So if you were having a manic episode like that during the menstrual cycle, instead of drinking more caffeine and trying to work harder, know that that is sort of a place where you want to treat yourself with a certain compassion, knowing that there's this fragility there. And set aside the time for the menstrual cycle to be a more calm experience. I mean, literally, like almost being able to shut the door to your closet, hopefully it's a big closet, and just shut the world out. And it's probably a good time to take on a meditative practice or a yoga practice or reading or writing, and just telling the boss, like, hey, you know, I need these days to be off work, or I need these days to be minimal amount of work, and use that as an opportunity to go within instead of trying to force yourself through it. Other things that can calm a manic episode are there's a lot of different herbs and supplements and things that can do that. I won't go into the granular aspects of that right now. We do have other videos that attend to that. But from a pragmatic level, oxygen is one of the cofactors for dopamine and norepinephrine breakdown. So, getting on a treadmill, going on a bicycle, anything that's going to really get the heart rate going, where you're going to be breathing more, is probably going to be some good medicine during this time. And of the panoply of supplement suggestions, maybe I can narrow it down to just 3. So high dose vitamin C. By high dose, I mean, you know, maybe 4 grams in some orange juice, some powdered vitamin C in orange juice. Some lithium orotate can be effective because lithium is also another cofactor. And high dose niacin. When I say high dose, I mean 500, maybe 1,000 milligrams. Maybe even do that twice a day. These things can bring somebody out of the rafters and help transition the experience. And also just playing it safe, we think that, running off without our car into a neighborhood that is unique to us in these manic moments might be a bright idea, but things like that can turn out bad too. So maybe, confiding in someone and letting them know that, hey, during these times you need some support, and maybe, have a buddy or a friend or a Rolodex of people that you can call, and they'll go out running with you, or just kind of help you through these particular times, so that you're not alone. All right, next question. Do you personally think Effexor is unacceptably addictive? I do, actually. And Effexor has such a short half-life. And it really is that short half-life that we believe causes the what would be called addiction. Now, the manufacturers, when confronted with the concept of the withdrawal reaction, rather than adopting the word addiction or even withdrawal reaction, they used language to soften the effect, the impact of what they were being confronted with by the larger community, and they chose the name discontinuation syndrome, which is basically the same way of saying that you're addicted to it and you're coming off of it, and it's causing you withdrawal. But it certainly kind of rose colors the situation. But in general, some antidepressants are easier to come off of than others, and Effexor is one of the worst. It might be the worst because of that short half-life. So alcohol, for instance, one of the reasons why it can hurt someone so bad and they can go into a seizure is because it leaves their system so fast. It's I think there's a sort of a phrase that encompasses this that might be popular. It's not the speed that kills you, it's the sudden stop. And in this particular case, the sudden stop of coming off Effexor is what causes the most intense parts of the withdrawal. So they have made the Effexor XR, which sort of allows that withdrawal time to be drawn out over a longer period of time. But Effexor does have a nasty withdrawal associated with it, and a lot of people feel it. It's not that obscure. Next question. What mental health state makes dealing with Effexor side effects worth the risk? To a large degree, this is a really personal question. For me to say what is worth the risk to you is it's not even appropriate. But in general, if someone is having suicidal, and since Effexor is a mood elevator, since it's actually stimulating, if a person feels so flat and so incapacitated and so unable to live life or to find happiness in life, to have the motivation or drive to even get out of the house, and this drug alleviates that, then it's a matter of degree. It's obviously living an unfulfilled life is very painful for any of us. The side effects of this particular medication can maybe be less than the ramifications of that. But what I would challenge people with that make the choice to go on Effexor because of those feelings, use the energy that you're getting from that to then have you look into things that could treat this more in a full encompassing way. Like looking at your diet, like getting to a naturopathic provider and looking at, maybe some of the gaps you might be having in your nutritional needs, or food allergies or exposure to mold compounds or things that, maybe getting to a therapist and using the power of having reflective counseling help assist you so that then you can transition from the medications to something that's more sustainable and doesn't have the side effects. Last question on this subject. Why do people on Effexor gain weight? People on Effexor generally don't gain weight. The weight gain is associated more with the SSRIs like Paxil or Zoloft or Prozac. Those are the ones that are usually more packing on the weight because the serotonin can help drop you into a more parasympathetic place, what they call anticholinergic effect as well. And those are the setups for gaining weight. Effexor people usually lose weight, honestly, but if people are gaining weight on Effexor, it could be that that they're depressed still, and the depression is causing them to try to self-medicate through food, or it could be that their particular setup has them where the serotonin effect of the Effexor is more prominent in them than the norepinephrine effect. And so then that serotonergic and the anticholinergic effect of Effexor is affecting them in ways that it doesn't typically do in most people and causing them to gain weight. And that is the end of our questions on Effexor Mania. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen today, and be sure to like this page and share it with anyone you think might like it. Thank you.